What better way to start Kaleidoscope, where we are positive, daring, different, than sitting back with a cup of Don's tea? Totally Sri Lankan, 100% pure Ceylon tea, grown, handpicked, and packaged in Sri Lanka. The Tunnel of Love is a 4-kilometer length of industrial railway located near Klevan in Ukraine, and apparently was a haven for lovers fleeing the Klevan castle centuries ago, or it may have been built by a lovelorn engineer to shorten the distance to his lover's home. The tunnel was used in the Cold War, and the trees were a deliberate cover for transporting arms. Later on in the show is Dr. Sepali Kottegoda on unpaid care work, Mahinda Dasanayaka about his books on a bike, and Naeem Riyad's gorgeous sketches in graphite. A major thank you to our amazing partners on the show, Selico Life, CDB, The Daily Morning, and Don's Tea. Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Subscribe and follow if you like our show.
You can now start a CDB iDeposit digital fixed deposit and experience a range of special benefits from CDB.
Welcome to CDB Snapshot and a quick look at the week that was. Great news! Sri Lanka's tourism industry rebounds with nearly $1 billion in earnings. Workers' remittances increased to $475.7 million in June. The cumulative from January to June is over $2.8 billion. Sri Lanka's gross official reserves is estimated to be about $3.5 billion as it ends June. The central bank expects inflation to decline to 7% in July. The Netherlands will return some artifacts looted during their rule in Sri Lanka, including a cannon and gem-studded sword. And also, Miss Netherlands is the world's first transgender woman to wear the crown. Threads, the new app rivaling Twitter, surpasses 100 million users in less than a week since its release. Doctors in Singapore find an octopus lodged in a man's esophagus. The man ate a meal with a raw octopus in it.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.
This is Srilanka Life News Capsule. Today we're shining a light on a true hero, Mahinda Dasanayaka, who took his bicycle, fixed a box on it, filled it with books, and rode miles to help children and adults get into the imaginative world of books. His Book&Me project even made it to the Nepalese media, and thus far, about 1,500 children and over 150 adults wait for his goodie bike of books to start reading. He popped into the studio and even presented me with a book he had written on the Book&Me project and told me why he started the project and what his next step would be.
ඇත්තට මම සමාජයේ ඉන්න ක්‍රියාකාරිකයෙක් විදියට මම මීට අවුරුදු 4කට ඉස්සරහ මම දැක්කා මේ සමාජයේ තියෙන ප්‍රශ්න ටික. ගොඩක් විශේෂයෙන්ම ගත්තට පස්සේ මේ මත්ද්‍රව්‍ය ප්‍රශ්නය, එතකොට සමාජ අපරාධ වැඩිවීම, ළමයි ඉන්න තත්ත්වයන්. ඉතින් ඒ තත්ත්වයන් එක්ක මගේ අධ්‍යයනයක් තිබ්බා මේ සමාජයට මේවා අවම කරන්න සමාජයේ අපිට ක්‍රියාකාරී වැඩක් මොකද්ද කරන්නේ. ඉතින් අර එහෙම හිතා ඉන්නකොට තමයි මට අදහස ආවේ මේ සමාජයේ මේ කියන අධ්‍යාපන සාක්ෂරතාවය, නිර්මාණශීලීත්වය, සාහිත්‍ය, කලාව වගේ දේවල් වලට ළමයි නැඹුරු කරොත්, සමාජයේ නැඹුරු කරොත් එතනින් එහාට මේ සමාජයේ බාර ගන්න ඉන්න පරම්පරාව මීට වැඩි නිර්මාණශීලීව හිතන්න, මේට වැඩි බුද්ධිමත් විදිහට සමාජයේ ගැටලු දකින්න පුරුදු වෙයි කියලා හිතලා තමයි මේ Book&Me වැඩසටහන පටන් ගත්තේ සමාජ වැඩක් විදියට. අර පටන් ගත්ත විදිය වෙනස් කරලා තියෙනවා සමහර තැන්වල. ඒ කියන්නේ මම සති දෙකකින් දෙකට ගම්මානවලට යනවා. අපි සමාජයේ තියෙන මේ රෝල් මොඩල්ස්, එතකොට අධ්‍යාපනය, සාහිත්‍ය, කලාව, චිත්‍රපටය එක්ක ළමයි ගොඩක් දේවල් අපි කතා කරනවා. ඉතින් අර තිබුණු තත්ත්වයන් එක්ක බලපුවාම සමාජයේ අපි මේ ළමයි ඉන්න දැන් අද ජීවත් වෙන ළමයි අපි දන්නවා ඉන්නේ තාක්ෂණය එක්ක විශාල ගැටලු ප්‍රමාණයක, සමාජ ගැටලු එක්ක, පෞල් ප්‍රශ්න. ඉතින් ඒවත් එක්ක අපි දැකලා තියෙනවා මේ වැඩසටහන් ඇතුලේ එයාලා හුරු වෙලා තියෙනවා මේ අලුත් ප්‍රවණතාවයකට. විශේෂයෙන් මේ කලාව, සාහිත්‍ය, සමාජ වැඩ ගැන ඉගෙන ගන්න, ඒවා ගැන කතා කරන්න, අලුත් දැනුම එකතු කරන්න සමාජයේ ළමයි ගොඩක් විදිහට පුරුදු වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඇත්තටම දැන් මේක මම හුදකලා වැඩසටහනක් නෙවෙයි. ඇත්තට මේක සමාජ වැඩක්. උතුරු නැගෙනහිර එතකොට කෑගල්ල තවත් දකුණේ දිස්ත්‍රික්කවල ගොඩක් තැන් වලින් ඉල්ලීම් තියෙනවා. ඉතින් මේ වැඩසටහන ඉස්සරහට ගෙන ඒකට අපි හැදුවා මේ රීඩින් විලේජස් කියලා සංකල්පයක්. ඒකෙන් අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා අවම තරමේ අවුරුද්දකට සමාජය එකතු වෙලා පොත් 200ක් කියවන්න. විශේෂයෙන් මේකට අපි පොත් එකතු කරන්නේ සමාජයෙන්මයි. අපි බලන්නේ වැඩිහිටියෝ නැඹුරු කරගන්න ළමයි වෙනුවෙන් හොඳ දෙයක් දෙන්න. ඒකට පොත් එකතු කරලා ඕම එකතු කරලා ළමයිට කියවීම හුරු කරලා සමාජ වැඩක් විදියට අපි රීඩින් විලේජස් කියන සංකල්පය මේ පොතයි මමයි වැඩසටහන එක්කම ඉස්සරහට ගෙන යනවා. ඒක අලුත් වැඩක් විදියට ඉස්සරහට අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා මේ වැඩසටහන එක්ක කරගෙන යන්න.
And here's where we have our market sketch of stock, oil, and gold markets. This week at the Colombo Stock Exchange, the all share price index continued its bull run and moved up by 2.5%. Saudi Arabia continued to cut its oil production this week, pushing WTI oil prices up to $75 per barrel. Gold prices edged up this week to $1,935 per ounce as the US dollar and US bond yields both fell slightly. An Italian fisherman has been dropping beautiful sculptures on the sea floor to not just make the ocean floor look great, but also to prevent trolling and give a resurgence to marine life. Two innovators from Mexico have invented vegan leather using leaves from the nopal cactus, making it durable, sustainable, and an environmentally friendly alternative to traditional leather. Target 5.4 of the SDGs call upon nations to recognize and value unpaid care and domestic work, which most often is deemed women's work. Globally, 75% of unpaid care work is done by women. According to the Institute of Policy Studies of Sri Lanka, women devote 1 to 3 more hours each day for housework than men and 2 to 10 times the amount of time a day to care. Earlier this month, the Women and Media Collective published a collection of research papers titled Working Hours Exploring Gender Dimensions of Unpaid Care Work in Sri Lanka, with the aim of exploring the work in Sri Lanka of unpaid care workers. Dr. Sepali Kottagoda is one of the two editors that worked to bring this collection together, and she joined me in the studio on Let's Talk today to discuss the prevalent problems with unpaid care work. A lot of work has gone into this research that you've done. Any sort of revelations that came across while you were doing this research?
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things was we had this diary that we had asked our respondents to fill up. We did the research in 800 households. So when we asked the women to fill up this diary, which had, from within these number of hours, from 4 to 6 or 6 to 8, what were you doing? They filled it up. We explained to them. And then at the end of it, they just said they never realized how much of work they actually do in a day. And I think that was really amazing, because usually, when you ask any woman who's at home, a housewife, or even what do you do at home, they say nothing. I do nothing at home. So the fact that with their own, they just noted down everything, and then they realized, yes, they do so many things. And that was a great realization.
In Sri Lanka, what are the statistics like? How do we compare to other countries?
There are about 6.2 million women who are females over 15 who are deemed not to be in the labor force, and of them 60% are engaged in housework, which means that is the primary factor that women are that prevents women from being in the labor force, being counted in the labor force as the labor force is defined now. So we have actually, relative to other countries in South Asia, our female labor force participation is quite low.
Unpaid care work is rarely recognized as deserving of remuneration and recognition. Why is that?
Because I think it's always couched in terms of very gendered norms that this is what women do. This is what women are born to do, to have a family, to birth children, or to look after other people's children, to cook and clean and wash and, for them, to look after the elderly. So it's so gendered that it really needs to be dismantled, I think, these norms. This need not and should not be the primary role of women.
Now, you've talked about the need to include the labor of unpaid care work into the economy, basically the labor force. What barriers do we have to break in order to achieve this?
Well, the primary barrier, I think, is to say that unpaid care work has an economic value. Because currently, to be included in the labor force, the definitions used is that you need to be engaged in some kind of activity that can be valued economically. So, wage workers, salaried persons, are included in the labor force. If we recognize that the work that is done, which constitutes unpaid care work, has an economic value, then we can move towards expanding the definitions that are currently used for the labor force and include the labor of those who are engaged in unpaid care work.
There are naysayers, and I suspect there will be many naysayers in the future as well. They deny that unpaid care work needs to be recognized. What do you say to them?
Well, I'd like to propose that maybe 75% of women engaged in unpaid care work now go on strike for a week, and let's see how we all function.
So is this purely a woman's issue, or do men also have a stake in this?
Well, in our research, we included a smaller sample of men because we recognize that men also, there are some men who do this kind of work or who share the care work in their homes. So yes, I think men do have a stake in it, and that should be something that needs to be highlighted as well.
Thank you so much. Good luck, and please keep doing this because this is something vital for women and for this nation. When I walked into the Harold Pieris Gallery last week for Skin and Graphite, I didn't know what to expect. And I found artist Naeem Riyad showcasing one of the most beautiful mediums of self-expression using graphite. Curated by Stefan Andre Joachim, the art on display captured nude art with great sophistication but also brought out movement, energy and some pioneering AI into the canvases.
Art knows no boundaries, and it is a powerful tool to defy norms and create beauty that resonates with our true selves. This exhibition aims to normalize nude art and celebrate self-expression within a society that often discourages it. Inspired by male anatomy and influenced by artists like Tom of Finland, whose highly masculinized homoerotic art shaped late 20th century gay culture, I aim to challenge societal norms through my work. Through Skin and Graphite, I want to encourage other queer artists in Sri Lanka to fearlessly express their unique perspectives, regardless of societal expectations.
I'm now going to sit back with some Don's black tea or maybe some Don's chai masala and bid you adieu. See you next week.